3.
All right, well, welcome everyone to the Committee on Taxation. We're going to get started with some work sessions this morning. We'll begin with introductions, starting with, let's see, Senator Libby, I don't think is here. Senator Pouliot.
Morning, State Senator Matt Pouliot, District 15, Augusta, China, Oakland, Sydney, and Bassboro.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Representative Mark Carmichael, is he with us? Don't see him.
Yeah.
Representative Collins. Not here. Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I am Lori Gramlich, and I represent House District 13, which is the lovely seaside community of Old Orchard Beach.
All right, Representative Hanley. Don't see him. Representative Kryzak, we said was going to be late. Representative Matlack, I see you're here.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, I am. My name is Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Cree Haven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
All right, Representative Perry.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Senator. I'm Joe Perry. I represent part of Bangor and part of Herman in the main house. Excuse me, part of Bangor and part
All right.
of Orono.
Thank you.
Issue. So this is the current status.
I think that was Representative Carmichael.
Representative Sachs.
Good morning. My name is Melanie Sachs. I'm House Representative from District 48, which is Freeport and part of Pownell. Good morning, everyone.
All right. It looks like Representative Carmichael.
Also the student entry.
Representative Carmichael, would you like to introduce yourself? Okay. How about Representative Hanley? I see you've joined us.
2020 entry.
How about now?
We can hear you, but we can also hear
Good
some
morning. You got some back feed from the audio.
2020, and then the number of students that were able to upgrade from a student to a commercial license in that same year. So just kind of taking it zone by zone and
So Representative Carmichael, I think we can hear the audio in the background. Is there any way you can lower that?
Avery, can you just mute him, please? Great. So, and Representative Hanley, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning. I'm Jeff Hanley. I represent District 87, which is Pittston, Allno, Wiscasset, and Randolph. And I also want to let you know I have 2 bills that I'm presenting this morning, so I'll be in and out.
Waiting list, and there were 20 students.
Representative Carmichael, you want to introduce yourself?
We'll try again.
Yeah,
go
you've got background noise, like there's audio happening in the background.
Yeah. I'll do it real quick. This is Representative Mickey Carmichael. I represent Penobscot, part of Penobscot, Washington, and Hancock counties.
Great, thank you. And Representative Terry.
I'm Representative Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west side of Gorham, and I serve as House Chair on the Tax Committee.
And I'm Senator Ben Chipman. I serve as Senate Chair of the committee. I represent Senate District 27, which is part of the city of Portland. Also like to introduce our committee clerk, Avery Page, as well as our analyst, Julie Jones. And so today I know we've got 3 bills on our schedule. I'd like to announce right up front that we will not be taking up LD 418. It's an act to create a graduated real estate transfer tax because the sponsor and co-sponsors of that bill are waiting for some information and are working on some things around possibly an amendment to that bill. So we won't be taking that bill up. We can take that off our schedule. So we'll be taking up the remaining 2 bills. LD 141 and LD 412. I think the sponsor of LD 412 is with us, so maybe we should take that one up first, since he's with us. He may have other places he needs to be. Does that sound okay, Representative Terry?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll take up LD 412, open up the work session on an act to authorize the use of tax increment financing funds for construction or renovation of municipal offices and other buildings. And I'll turn things over to our analyst, Julie Jones, who can walk us through this.
Hi, good morning. Yes, this bill relates to tax increment financing, as you've mentioned. Under current law, the statutes specify the permissible uses that a municipality may make of TIF revenues. So under, when they set up a district, they are authorized to shelter the value of that district and to use, as long as they're using the revenue from the district for purposes that are allowed under statute. Those are mostly, although some kind of marginally, but related to economic development purposes within the municipality, since the purpose of the TIF law is to provide an incentive for economic development. Under LD 412, this bill would permit revenue from a TIF increment financing district to be used by a municipality for the construction or renovation of municipal offices or other buildings. It would limit that use in that, to a certain extent, in that the amount the municipality could use each year would be $1 million during a 20-year period for any one TIF district. The bill also corrects a conflict, but that's just a statutory conflict in the statute where last year 2 paragraphs were enacted with the same letter and they have to be assigned, or one of them has to be assigned a new letter. You asked some information from the sponsor at the public hearing, and he has provided information to you. It's been emailed to you, and it's also available online on the Taxation Committee materials page. I know he's here today, so he probably would like to speak to you as well.
Yeah, that would be fine. Maybe we can hear from him now.
At least I think he's here.
I am here. Thank you for recognizing me, Senator Chipman. I'm happy to answer any questions that committee members may have. The information that was requested at the public hearing has been sent to you, and I'd be happy to answer any more questions as we go on through the process. And I see Senator Bailey is here as well. She is the lead Senate co-sponsor, and she may be available to offer some insight too.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Senator
Of
Bailey,
course.
for being with us as well. Did you have anything else you wanted to add for additional information, Senator Bailey?
No, thank you. I'm here mostly if committee members have questions. Thank you.
Is there any questions from committee members about this bill? It was a couple of weeks ago that we heard it.
Yeah, I do.
Not seeing it. You have a question, Representative Terry?
I do. I struggle with this one quite a bit because it does really veer off from, I mean, I understand that, having a nice town hall could be considered part of economic development, but it doesn't really get to the meat of what the TIF program is all about. And I'm curious and wondering what your thoughts are on if we allow this to be an expansion, what are your thoughts on it happening all over the state? What kind of, sort of like what kind of mud can we get in with that? And I don't necessarily mean to ask either Representative Carlo or Senator Bailey that question, but maybe just as in general, we can start off the conversation with where does that put us? If we do allow this to happen, seeing all kinds of towns all over the place doing, taking advantage of this.
Okay. Representative Perry, or do you want to respond to that, Representative Carlo?
I would be happy to just say that the purpose of this bill is to start a conversation. I think that there is a legitimate correlation between your municipal buildings, and your economic development. The bill initially included a provision to limit that, and I would, of course, be willing to talk about how we could expand those limitations to ensure that this is not being abused. The last thing I want is for town halls to abuse this provision, but I also want to give them flexibility to meet municipal needs that do correspond with economic development. So I do see your point, Representative Terry, and it was a point that was taken into consideration when the bill was drafted. So I just add that. I, of course, would be willing to have an amendment to strengthen the limitations that were on there. In discussions with Senator Bailey before, while we were talking about the bill, we even thought about doing a dollar for dollar match. That was Senator Bailey's idea, to have for every dollar that was taken out of the TIF, have the municipality put that money out of their general fund towards that project also. So I think that there are ways to strengthen those restrictions to prevent the abuse that you're talking about. And I would be in favor of talking about that.
Yeah, and I have to say, I wouldn't really even call it abuse, just, you know, using the program for that reason. I wouldn't call it necessarily abuse, but I would say it's, you know, it's perhaps, I would think it would be one of the last tools that you would want to use for building your town up, other than economically. You know, there's bonding, for instance. I think most towns will, especially in a market like this, go for bonding when they need to make improvements. I understand the town manager of Hollis is not interested in that, but that is sort of, you know, financially the best time to do it is at a time that we're in right now. So I just, I'm curious as to what the unintended or even intended consequences are of this. I know that there are some folks from DECD that might be able to answer that too. So, but maybe we'll let Representative Perry ask his question as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Representative Perry.
Thank you, Chairs. Yeah, I don't see the limitations as being the problem. This just is the wrong policy for TIF. I went to my municipal officials. There's plenty of projects we could be doing with it, and they were opposed to it, saying, you know, it doesn't fit with the program. TIF is supposed to help expand the tax base, create economic activity. Even my communities that could use this were opposed, and that was my feeling going into it. It's not the limitations that I needed, it's just the wrong policy for TIF. So I understand why you brought forward. I understand what your communities are looking for, but I just think this could be the beginning of the end for TIF. We made some changes for public safety where maybe you could draw a slight correlation. I'm not sure I would have supported that, and I don't want to see any more erosion of the TIF program. So at some point, I'll be likely to move a not to pass.
Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Senator. To Representative Perry's point, I'm kind of curious, however, if we're talking about expanding and broadening the tax base, I think one of the ways that we do that is we invite more folks into a particular municipality, and quite often people's first impression of a municipality is their town hall. So I'm just kind of curious if the sponsors had considered that line of reasoning at all. I certainly respect the germane nature of what TIFs were intended for, but I'm kind of curious how that kind of plays out in terms of having, you know, putting our best foot forward in terms of inviting more folks into a community by having a workable town hall and public safety building.
Is that a question for a particular person? From who, for who?
For either of the for either of the sponsors to respond to.
Would either Representative Carlo or Senator Bailey like to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Representative Gramlich. I'm trying to be respectful of the committee's time. These were points that were made during the public hearing, and I don't want to reiterate those points. I do agree with you. I think that is a good way to expand the tax base. I do believe strongly that this would be a significant economic impact for Hollis, which is why I did submit the legislation. I believe in that strongly. And I really would like to see communities throughout the state be given flexibility. So this is, like I said, to start a conversation. I do think that it would have a positive impact for the towns that Senator Bailey and I represent. And hopefully other municipalities would be able to take advantage of that also. But I do see your point and I agree with it completely.
So Representative Carlo, I guess I'm just wondering, how would we put a limitation on this that would prevent, larger cities and towns that are doing better than Hollis in terms of economic development, being able to use this for building new city halls and other municipal buildings as well? I mean, how would you sort of limit it so that only towns in the situation Hollis is in would be able to use it?
Yeah, I think that would be up for the committee to determine. I think that there is a way to frame the language to say towns like big cities like Portland, or others, not to call out Portland, but to say, where there's a need, there should be flexibility there. Perhaps we could look at the total gross general fund for cities to determine, where is the cutoff. That might be something that the committee could discuss. Does that answer your question?
Well, I think it makes sense to try to help smaller towns, but I think if you open it up so that all municipalities can use this, there's going to be some that are using it that maybe aren't as much in need as Hollis, and sort of how do you craft a policy that prevents that and still allows towns like Hollis to use it? I mean, I think bonding it's a good time for bonding, and I know Hollis doesn't want to bond and also wants to keep the mill rate at around 14 or 14.50 that we heard that it was during the public hearing, which is a pretty attractive low mill rate. But maybe that going up 25 or 50 cents on that or something like that to cover the cost of a bond. I know that people in town may not want to do that, but it's really a trade-off. It's like, if you want to have economic development, you have to be willing to pay for services and things that are going to attract businesses to the town and people to the town that want to be there because of the services that are there, whether it's a better town hall or a new fire department or better paved roads or whatever, or having better quality school buildings. Those things all cost money, and those things have to be paid for. And I mean, a lot of cities and towns have a mill rate much higher than that, and they're able to do more with that money and have better buildings and services. And it's really a trade-off, I think, in a lot of ways. But I just was wondering if we did go down the road of doing something with this bill and trying to prevent it from being used by cities and towns that don't need it. I mean, what would that policy be? How would we do that? And I'm not really sure myself, but we have a couple of people that want to speak. I think Senator Bailey and then Senator Pouliot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things, just addressing your last comment. You kind of put your thumb on the problem, where it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, which comes first, right? The infrastructure to attract businesses, or do you attract the businesses and then build the infrastructure? And I don't have an answer to that question. I think this bill is giving an opportunity for municipalities to build the infrastructure first to then attract businesses. I think, although I wasn't here for the debate, or at least I don't recall the debate, I think that's the reason why the provision was added, to be able to use it for public safety. And so that's the second part of my comment, and perhaps Senator Pouliot was going to already bring this up, but I know at the public hearing, he mentioned with the public safety infrastructure, it is based on, I think it's 15%. So there is a percentage, which I certainly would be in favor of if the committee wanted to amend this to match that same percentage for this bill. And that may be a way to address some of your concerns. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Senator Pouliot and Representative Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of things. First, the bill that we had last session was really a function of a need for the city of Augusta to build a new police station, which is going to happen or is going to start this year. And really, you know, wanted to reduce the impact on property taxpayers. You know, Augusta is service center community anyway, so all of you get to come here and enjoy our wonderful facilities, but none of you pay for them. We do with our property tax dollars. And, you know, this city really, I think, you know, was in a tough spot with trying to get some resources together for this, but I don't necessarily think that that's entirely different than a lot of other service center communities around our state that could utilize the benefit. And I don't really think that necessarily Hollis would be considered a service center community, but the reality is that they're very committed to trying to do what they can to keep the property tax down, just like the city of Augusta is. And I think that, you know, in looking at this, I think of it in terms of like, what can we be doing to help keep property taxes in check? You know, one of the things that we can do is increase revenue sharing, and we're on a path toward doing that. The other thing we can do is increase the reimbursement rate for homestead exemption, and we're on a path toward doing that. But also, this is another mechanism to help with local municipalities who have, you know, development going on in their communities or have, you know, growth happening, to keep some of those resources there locally to reduce their need to borrow money. And I do agree with you, Senator Chipman, you know, the interest rates are really low right now and bonding is attractive. But if we can put mechanisms in place for people to pay cash for things instead of put it on a credit card, you know, I think that that's a good idea in the long run, because it's going to save us money and free up those resources that will be used for interest payments later to do like other things, like put more money into the K-12 system and so forth. So when asked to sponsor this legislation last year, I had the first thought that many of you have, which is, how does this help with economic development? And, you know, when you look at it, you think, does a police station help with economic development? I think that you could make a lot of, you know, cases that having a safe community is something that people look forward to when they want to consider where they're going to live, and having a good station allows for that to occur. And same with a municipal building. You know, I think that there's a lot of times where people have, you know, an opportunity to go interact with city government, town government, or they're going to be working on a project and they need a good facility to do it, or a good place, safe place to go vote. Those are all things. But I think more importantly, it frees up resources from that municipality from not having to pay for interest on bonding, you know, to put into other things in the community that would help with growing that community and with economic development. So it's really, at the end of the day, for me, it's about just freeing up cash flow for the community that they can then put into other projects that would have a positive economic benefit. So I think as it relates to this bill, we might give some consideration to keeping a cap in there so that, you know, this isn't abused by larger communities that might have more, you know, bigger TIF pools to pull from than smaller ones. And I think that the sponsors of this bill have looked at that, and I'm certainly open as well to looking at adding a percentage on there. But if we add that percentage in, I think we ought to still consider capping it so it doesn't get too big, because Hollis, you know, is fortunate to have Poland Springs, which provides a tremendous amount of, you know, taxable value that some neighboring towns might not necessarily have. And so we want to make sure to have a little bit more equity there. And I think the cap helps accomplish that.
Thank you for that, Representative Sachs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Senator Pouliot. I agree. I actually was so close to agreeing to so much of what you said. Also, Freeport being a service center community who also has a TIF district, who has to bolster up their public service and public safety to accommodate the millions of visitors who come, and for which we are grateful. For me, as I've spoken, and so grateful to Representative Carlo for taking the time to talk with me about this bill, and having served as a municipal official for 6 years in Freeport, I understand the intent of the bill. I am not in favor of expanding the TIF for this particular mechanism, as I found the link between economic development and a municipal building to be somewhat tenuous. I agree, though, that things like public safety, you actually, with response times, get a break on insurances. So businesses, there's a direct correlation between some of those public safety things that I just couldn't make that leap. Because when we talk about equity, small towns, big towns, some don't have the benefit of TIF, some do. So there's already that disparity. And when you pull one thread of this and you say, okay, you're already getting X amount sheltered from value so that your municipal revenue sharing is not impacted, that's already a benefit. And I understand the tough choices that municipalities make. I was on the end of making those choices as well. This for me just wasn't the right mechanism. I will beat the drum of needing to increase municipal revenue sharing so that there are more options for municipalities to be able to keep that property tax down, and that we need to do our part to keep that revenue sharing up to statutory limits. But for me, this is just not the right mechanism to do so based on experience. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Representative Perry?
Thank you. I'll take Representative Sachs' comments one step further and move on not to pass.
You cut out a little bit, so you're making a motion of ought not to pass?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Yes.
Seconded by Representative Matlack. Is there any additional discussion from the committee? Representative Sachs?
May I just ask, Julie, are the statutory changes that were also included, just correcting a minor piece of this, is that something that should be accomplished with this bill? So I'm just wondering if that's something that we need to do, so that if we took out the pieces around TIF funding but kept in the statutory, is that something that's needed?
You would not need to do this if it was the only thing that you were going to do in this bill. The revisor's office has the ability to reassign paragraph numbers in something called a revisor's report, which is usually done in the fall. They would be able to make that correction. But in printing this bill, they were making changes to that section, so they thought they would put it in there as well to make that correction, rather than there being two subparagraph 9s. They changed one to a subparagraph 10. But enacting a bill just to do that would not be considered to be necessary. They can make that correction on their own.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
All right, looks like Senator Chipman jumped out for a second. So there's a motion on the table, ought not to pass. Any further questions? So let's raise hands if you are in favor of ought not to pass. Please remember to put your video screen on if you're not on already. Okay, so Avery, you got that? That would be myself, Representative Perry, Representative Matlack, Representative Sachs,
Do we have okay,
Representative Collins.
got it.
Oh, and here comes Senator Chipman's coming back.
Oh, okay.
We lost you there for a second, Ben.
Yeah, I just wanted to announce to everybody, I have to leave to go over to Judiciary to present a bill. I did write a comment, but in case people didn't see that. So I'm going to hand things over to Representative Terry, and I'll be back when I can.
You want to vote while you're here? We're just voting ought not to pass. The motion is ought not to pass.
Okay, so everybody's voting now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll vote as well, ought not to pass.
Okay, so for those supportive of the motion, I have Senator Chipman, I have Representative Terry, Representative Collins, Representative Matlack, Representative Perry, and Representative Sachs.
Great. And against? Do we need to do that? Yeah. Okay.
For those opposed, I have Representative Carmichael, I have Senator Pouliot.
Looks like that's all of us for the moment.
Okay.
And what will the at this point, Minority Report be?
Sure. I don't know. I haven't talked with the others, but I would say ought to pass as amended with a reduction to 15% of the district, keeping the $1 million cap that's in the bill.
All good, Julie? All right, terrific. All right, so the work session on that bill is closed. And Julie, let's jump into the department bill. Oops, I lost my page here. Let's see. That's, I think, LD 141.
Yes, LD 141 is the annual Maine Revenue Services bill to make technical changes to the tax laws. Mr. D'Alessandro is here to talk you through his chart that was provided at the public hearing. I have looked over the provisions and they all look to me to look technical. Technical changes are considered to be ones that make no substantive changes in the laws and that have no fiscal impact. So they would not change revenue collected one way or the other, and they would have no substantive changes in the tax law. Maine Revenue Services always prepares a really good chart, which was provided to you at the public hearing. We have that available to share. At this point, I'm not entirely sure whether Mr. D'Alessandro wants to share that himself or whether he wants me to do so, but either way, we could share that chart with you as he goes through it section by section, if that's the way you want to proceed with it.
Mr. D'Alessandro, do you want to jump right in, or would you prefer Julie do so? Either one is fine with me too.
Julie, can you share the chart and then I can go through the provisions?
Yes, I will do that.
I just want to double check, Senator Pouliot, you don't have a question, do you? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, you got it?
Yes.
Is it big enough?
I can see. Everybody else okay? Yeah, looks like we've got nodding heads. All right, Daniel,
Okay,
you're
I
up.
can move through it.
Okay. All right, great. Representative Terry, members of the Taxation Committee, my name is Daniel D'Alessandro, and I'm an attorney for the Office of Tax Policy at Maine Revenue Services. And I can go through the chart here and the provisions in our technical changes bill. Section A1 of the bill authorizes Maine Revenue Services to disclose information to FAME necessary for the administration of the seed capital investment tax credit. FAME is responsible for certifying investments that are eligible for the credit. So this provision would let us communicate with them while we administer it. Section A2 and A6 clarify that for both the tax on insurance companies and also the general income tax, that for purposes of the employer credit for family medical leave, employees based in the state means employees that perform more than 50% of employee-related activities for the employer at a location in Maine. This change reflects our current administrative practice and would be retroactive to January 1st, 2018, when this credit was enacted. Section A3 amends a provision in the Maine fiduciary income tax law to incorporate gender neutral terms, delete a duplicate word, and make other technical textual changes. Section A4 repeals the additional tax on lump sum retirement plan distributions, which do not apply to tax years beginning after 2012. A5 repeals the additional tax on early distributions from qualified retirement plans, which also does not apply to tax years beginning after 2012. We've already gone over A6. A7 clarifies that a non-resident estate or trust that does not have main taxable income or main income tax liability must nonetheless file a main income tax return only if the estate or trust has distributable net income derived from or connected with sources in Maine and gross income of 10,000 or more. This is, again, current administrative practice, but there was some, what we're adding here is the connected with sources in Maine language. Before it just said $10,000 anywhere, but we've always read that as $10,000 connected with Maine, and now we're putting that in the statute here. Sections A8 and A9 amend Title 36, sections 5,221 and 5,228 to incorporate gender neutral terms. And section A10 applies the retroactive application date for sections A2 and A6. Section B1 amends the diabetic supplies exemption to require use by the purchaser. And we had some questions about this at the public hearing. So I wanted to make sure that we all understood what was happening here. There are multi-purpose items that could be used as diabetic supplies or as something else, maybe compression socks. And what this change does is it makes sure that those items are only tax exempt if they're going to be used for the diagnosis or treatment of human diabetes and not for those other purposes. And there was a question about whether a caregiver would be able to get this exemption if they were purchasing the supplies for a relative. And the answer is yes, they would. Caregivers could still get the exemption because the language only requires the purchaser to use the supplies for the diagnosis or treatment of diabetes, not necessarily their own diabetes. And use is a defined term in sales tax law, and it's defined broadly. And it would include a situation where a caregiver purchased the diabetic supplies for somebody else. So long as that person, as long as it was going to be used in the diagnosis and treatment of human diabetes. Sections B2 to B4 and B6 to B8 include in Title 36 the effective date of 3 sales tax exemptions that were enacted in the first regular session of the 129th, but did not take effect until after the end of the second regular session. These bills were held over on the governor's desk between sessions, which moved their effective date from the October 1st that was in the bill to 90 days after the adjournment of the second session. And so this is just a clarifying change, moving that effective date that's required by the Constitution into Title 36 and repealing the ineffective effective date. Section B4, which is part of that change, has to do with the exemption, the sales tax exemption for nonprofit worldwide charitable organizations. And we also had a question on this at the public hearing. When this exemption was enacted, there was ambiguity in whether the language applied to the local member organization or the worldwide umbrella organization. And we believe the intent was clear that it was the local member organization, and that's how we've been administering it. But this language removes that ambiguity in line with our current interpretation. It makes it clear that it's the local member organizations that receive the sales tax exemption. Section B5 removes the Mayo Regional Hospital in Dover Foxcross from the hospital tax definition of municipally funded hospital. It merged with Northern Light and is no longer a municipally funded hospital. Sections B6 to B8, we talked about, that's part of the effective date technical correction, and so is B9.
Mr. D'Alessandro, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Going back to section B5, removing the Mayo Regional Hospital, is in that statute, is there a list of municipally funded hospitals?
There
that
is.
what's taken out?
There is.
Okay, okay.
Which isn't
So-
normally how that would be drafted, but it is drafted that way here.
So if there were a new municipally funded hospital that showed up, that would have to be a technical change to get back on there at one point or another?
Right, if either to manually add it or to look at a broader solution.
Okay, okay, terrific, thank you. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh no, if anybody has any questions, please.
Excellent.
Moving to the property tax section, or part, section C1 clarifies that the local assessor qualifying examination and individual examination results are confidential and thus not producible under a Freedom of Access Act request. Section C2 clarifies that the enhanced business equipment tax exemption reimbursement only applies to tax increment financing exempt business equipment when the reimbursement is used to fund a TIF development program. And so we also had questions about this at the public hearing. When Betty was enacted, it had the potential to reduce municipal revenues, which might disturb existing TIFs. TIFs are reliant on the revenues that are in the TIF and may have long-term financing components that could have been disturbed by the enactment of Betty. And so Betty included the enhanced reimbursement, and that kept those TIFs whole, even though the municipality might lose revenue for other Betty equipment, they wouldn't in that TIF. But that purpose is only achieved if that enhanced reimbursement goes into the TIF development program and not into some other fund. So the change here clarifies that enhanced reimbursement must go into the TIF, and this does reflect our current administrative practice. And I spoke with Kate Dufour from MMA after the public hearing, and she was okay with this provision and said that I could pass that along to the committee at this work session.
Great, thank you.
So we now have an amendment that I provided at the public hearing. The amendment makes taxpayer identification numbers included on the commercial forestry excise tax return confidential and not public records for purposes of Title I, Chapter 13.
Any questions so far for Mr. D'Alessandro? Nope, all righty.
Section D1 updates Title 36, Section 173 concerning collection by warrants. To clarify the intent and make technical changes, what's happening here is the section is updated to use gender neutral terms and remove out-of-date language to conform with current revisor's office drafting guidelines. And Section D2 repeals a provision that required the Joint Standing Committee of the legislature having jurisdiction over taxation to report out a bill permanently eliminating corporate tax expenditures totaling $6 million per biennium by February 6, 2016. And that's all of the provisions of the bill. If there are any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. D'Alessandro? Nope, seeing none. This is my bill, so I can't make a motion. Would anyone care to make a motion? Representative Sachs.
Number one, thank you very much, Mr. D'Alessandro, for answering all of my questions that you were answering from the public hearing. So thank you very much. And I'd like to make a motion ought to pass as presented. Or I don't think there's any reason to amend it, correct? There's no fiscal note or anything. I just say ought to pass as presented.
There's the amendment.
amendment.
Oh,
Just the amendment. Okay, so ought to pass as amended, please. That's right, with the additional amendment.
Excellent.
Second.
Representative Perry seconded, and all in favor. Video screens, please, and hands. Got that okay, Avery? Looks like we're
Yep,
getting-
I have Senator Pouliot, Representative Terry, Representative Collings, Representative Matlack, Representative Perry, Representative Carmichael, Representative Sachs.
Excellent. Good. That is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That actually concludes our work session for today. Again, just kind of going back to the real estate transfer tax bill that we were supposed to talk about today. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, MRS has finished their work on that. They just haven't had a chance to give that to Representative Williams to go over and talk about it a little further. So we'll see that very soon. And Julie, I think we have an amendment review to do.
Yes.
Excellent.
LD 198, which was the sales tax exemption for labor councils. The vote was ought to pass as amended fiscal note only. And I have a copy of that I can share with you. It does have a fiscal note. This one. This is the fiscal note indicating that there is a projected cost. This is for the constitutionally required 50% reimbursement to municipalities for property tax new property tax exemptions. Because of the timing of the reimbursement would actually not happen until the fall of 2023 for an exemption which begins taking place in 2022. So the first year of an impact would be FY24, and they've estimated $1,300 reimbursement and $1,350 in the next fiscal year. I believe, as far as we knew when the bill was being worked, there was only one municipality that had a central labor council that would be eligible for this exemption.
Correct.
But that's the fiscal note. So this is the amendment review. Go back to the review. So you can see this is the review itself just says amend the bill by incorporating the fiscal note.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions or concerns about that? Seeing none, I think we're good to go.
I did have one other thing I was hoping you could let me do.
Absolutely.
As you're aware, because this session has been so different with regard to the receipt and keeping track of public testimony at public hearings, we've been in the process, it's not me, but legislative staff has been in the process of, the IT people have been in the process of developing a system. And there is a new addition or improvement on that section. What it means is that you will, if you haven't already, you will no longer receive an automatic email of every single testimony that's submitted through the testimony portal. Like I said, I'm not sure when they start that, but it's going to be soon if it hasn't happened already. But I'm going to share screen again. Okay. Well, no, that's not what I want. Why don't I have, I can do this one.
While you're looking that up, Julia, just ask broadly, has everyone figured out the website, how to find testimony on the website? Okay. Just a little nod.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to show actually, and it's a little improved. Even since this morning. If you go to the committee website, again, going through the main, are you seeing the main legislative webpage now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so if you go up here into committees, the way you would to get to the taxation committee information, I'm just doing this in case many of you are hopefully very used to this now, but if you're not, you go to taxation committee materials up there. And you'll notice now there's going to be a lot of LDs listed in here. Eventually, they'll probably all be listed. For instance, LD 168, you are hearing this afternoon. you'll see there's a link now under each of these bills for electronic testimony. If you link on the one for 168, it will take you to that page which you had to click on strange, obscure boxes in order to assess it earlier. Now it will take you to all that information. So at 168, it's showing you everything for this afternoon. So if you click on the LD number, the testimony will drop down. So hopefully that will be a much easier way to access all that information. You'll know there's only one place you go for all of it, and it's fairly easy if you get used to that page, which is the page that will have all of the information that's been provided to you electronically, whether it comes from me or whether it comes from other people. Actually, to go back to it for a second, if I can. For instance, down here, after all the list of LDs, there's an item called bill analysis. This is where the charts that I provide for a work session or public hearing will be available to you if you want to print them out from there or access them later and have lost track of the email where they were sent to you. They'll still be sent to you hopefully the day ahead of the public hearing or the work session, but you can always find them here. They'll be posted here for you to look at or print if you want. So hopefully, like this is how I access the main revenue services chart this morning on LD 141 and the proposed amendment. So the things that are shared on screen will be here. The testimony will be here, and other things that I provide related to bills.
So
that was it. I just wanted to make sure that hopefully, like I said, soon, if not already, the legislative technology people will disable the automatic emailing of every single piece of testimony. There are a lot of them, and a lot, if not all of you, were very frustrated by that process.
Yeah, it was a lot. Julie, I thank you very much for sharing that, especially where your charts are hidden. That's like super. That's really a good thing to know. And I hate to do this to you, but it looks as though there's just a few of us left here today. I think there were a lot of folks that needed to go out and do provide testimony to a bunch of other committees. Would you mind on Thursday morning, before we get into work session, just kind of doing that quickly again for our other members who maybe didn't get a chance to see today?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you. We'll wish that, the five of us will have a heads up. That's it. Especially those charts. Boy, that's fantastic. I'm so glad to see that those are there. All right. Does anybody, go ahead, Julie, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I took it down. I don't know. Can I get it back up there quickly? I think I can. Also, on that, you'll notice that where those charts are listed, the bill analysis, which looks like it's the title of the thing, which it is, but if you click on that, you'll get to the master chart. So anytime you're looking for any bill, you're on that master chart. So it will tell you the last time it was updated, so it will not have been updated probably for today's. I need to tell Mandy to do the update.
Okay.
Mandy is the genius behind all of this in terms of actually making it happen. But I will, after this meeting, get it updated before this afternoon. But that chart will also be there in addition to the daily charts. So anytime you're looking for any of the bills, if they haven't been heard or worked, actually, if they haven't been heard yet, what's over here in this summary line is simply going to be the summary from the bill. When a bill is up for a public hearing or a work session, I usually do some massaging to it. So you can see that 23, the first one on this list, is simply the summary from the bill because you haven't heard it yet. But 80 you have heard and worked, so it has to have additional information, and it'll show you that at the work session it was tabled.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Okay. Good deal. If that is all, then I think we're done. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss, talk about, say hello? All right, terrific. That concludes our work for this morning. We will see you all this afternoon at 1 o'clock for a handful of, well, a fistful of public hearings. All right, terrific. Have a great morning, everyone.